Today we talk to a radio icon, over 30 years in one market, all at number one. She is loved by her city and radio community. No one rivals her success.
I know we talk about how time is just running so fast, but it's just a nice little encapsulation to remind us 2027 is just 6 months away. 2016 was 10 years ago. COVID started over 6 years ago. People born in 1990 are only 14 years away from turning 50. We just heard Billy Ocean because that's probably a 40-something-year-old song.
Yeah.
So again, if we were in 1990, would we really be listening to music in the early 50s? I do not think so.
No, we weren't.
We were listening to Nirvana.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, welcome to the Quarter Hour Podcast. I'm your host, Liam Renton, and along with Wade Kingsley, it's an honour to have Tanya Wilks on today's podcast. Over a decade at 2HD in Newcastle, before moving to KOFM, now Triple M for 26 years, she's had 2 long-term radio husbands and has never left the city she grew up in. Tanya Wilks, welcome to the Quarter Hour Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
If I was going to build a Mount Rushmore in Newcastle, here's the 4 biggest names I'd have on the carved statue. I'd have Matty Johns, Dave Gleeson from the Screaming Jets, Daniel Johns, obviously from Silverchair, and I'd have you, Tanya Wilks, as my top 4 all-time Newcastle personalities.
You are too kind or you don't get out much. I don't know which it is, Liam.
I've got to preface that by saying Joey Johns would probably get a statue on his own, so we'll remove him from that top 4. But that is the vibe I get on just the love and support I feel for you in your own hometown.
Well, again, way too kind, but that's very nice to hear that, even if it's only a fraction true. But I think I've been around for so long. I think that's part of the secret. When you've been around and you've been doing what I've been doing for so long, you're part of the furniture.
Why don't you take us back? You started at 2HD at 17 years of age, is that right? You were writing copy?
Kinda. I was actually 15.
Did they know that?
Well, I think so, because I had done job experience there when I was 14, and I kept harassing them for a job, and eventually they caved, and I started part-time, and then at the end of year 10, and I was obviously going back to years 11 and 12, but then they called and they went, we do have an opening if you want to work in copy. So that's where I started. But I kind of juggled that and a cadetship in the newsroom after about a year. So, yeah. So
was On Air the dream, or you just took the first job that came up? Like, what roles did you have at the radio station?
Yeah, copy, newsroom, so breaking news. And then I was producing an afternoon current affairs program that was, brand new. It was hosted by a guy named Jeff J, who I visited last week only. So all these connections still part of my life, really. So I was basically sleeping in a couch at the studio because I was there for so many hours a day. So it was a massive passion of mine. Just love radio.
Tell me about the move to On Air. How did that all come about?
So I was 17. I'd already been doing news reports, etc., etc. But for my own show, I was given the first one. I was allowed to hone my skills on weekend mid-dawn. And then I did nighttime requests. Then I did a Sunday brekkie. And then David Collins came to town. I think he did about 6 months on breakfast on his own. And he admitted that it wasn't going so well. So he wanted someone local. He wanted he wanted to try a male-female, which wasn't being done. And we had a crack and we went number 1 in that first survey.
Wow. So how did you actually get paired up with him? He found you, he asked around, who's local, I hear this girl on the air. How'd that come about?
He came to 2HD where I was working and he was my boss. We used to call him program director. Every announcer had to file in and sit down and meet and give him their 15 minutes of fame, what they've been doing, what they do. And look, I won't say we hit it off because we certainly didn't. We're very different people. But I think he could see, obviously something that I couldn't. We started working together. I quit after about 2 weeks because I couldn't stand him and literally quit the whole thing. And then, I don't know, we ended up at a pub together with our then boss, and he's like, just, bear with me. I know I'm quite abrasive. He was very almost chauvinistic at the start of our relationship. I don't know, somewhere we met in the middle and it worked. He became one of my best friends, a member of my family, godfather to my son. So, yeah, what started very rocky and not a lot of love there turned into one of the great loves of my life until he passed.
I love that story. You were number one at 2HD. Why did you both leave there? What's the story there?
When Corrales took over 2HD, it was just a succession of people being shown the door. I just wasn't cut out to be around that kind of stuff. And I just literally signed a 5-year contract. Can you believe it? I had a great solicitor here in Newcastle that was a friend of the Knights at the time. And I was able to get out of that contract, which I feel almost guilty at because I know contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on these days, and that's a negative. But I couldn't remain, and I wanted to go. And I was able to, get rid of that and move overseas for a little while, and then came back to 2KO, which is now Triple M.
Describe to me your relationship with David Collins. Over 20 years on air together. You kind of summed it up where you said you hated him and then you ended up loving him. What was the relationship like?
In the early days, it was, but almost like a Punch and Judy show. Like he was ruthless, and he would be the first to admit that if he was still here. It took me a while to hone those skills of being as good as I got, kind of thing. But it was a great training ground for that. And like I say, we met in the middle, and that just wasn't professionally, that was personally. So I feel like a bit of him rubbed off on me, or not a lot of him rubbed off on me, and he would say the same. So we changed as people. I think we became better broadcasters for knowing and working and loving one another. And it was a wonderful time of my life. He was super supportive of everything that I wanted to do personally and professionally.
I can't imagine what it would be like for you to have someone that you'd worked with, that you'd loved, and after David had passed away, for you to be on the air. How do you process that so publicly?
Look, I took a week off. I remember that to lay David to rest because we were his family, so I had to do it. I wanted to do all that. But to process it publicly, I think it was the most wonderful thing for me because every listener, even the new ones, they were just so supportive. This was a death of a person that meant a lot to a lot of Novocastrians and in particular our listeners. So I just felt a great big warm hug every day. It was beautiful.
You're working with someone new. That's going to take an emotional toll. Emotionally, was it hard?
It wasn't hard because I don't know whether you know, Steve, but I've been so lucky, so fortunate to have David and now Steve. They're both Leos. They're so similar in so many ways, different in others, obviously, but we get on like a house. He's my new David. I hate to say that because that you can't replace someone, but we've got that same relationship. Like, I'm his executor. I look after this for him. We're just great friends. And I don't think I could be thrown together with someone that I genuinely did not want to work with, and it was just because a content director or a manager made me, and this is the paycheck. I couldn't do that. I would walk away before I had to do that, and that's the truth. We get on famously.
How do you go from being a competitor to an on-air partner in Steve?
Well, Steve came across to Triple M or KO at the time before we worked together. So he was already doing our drive. So we'd had a year or maybe even two to bed in to being on the same team. I think if they'd done it in the sense that he finished one day on NX and came across to KO/Triple M, I think that might have been a bit difficult to get my head around. Well, hang on. Yesterday I wasn't supposed to like you, but we had a year or might have even been two for us to get our loves back on.
So you've been successful now, highly successful with 2 radio teams. You're clearly the common denominator.
I would not say that, Liam. I think both combinations have just resonated. So we've worked, David and I, and now Steve and I, have been wonderful.
How would you describe your ability to relate to your hometown? I mean, obviously, there's something in the fact that you're from there, you grew up there, you know everyone there. Tell me about that ability to relate to what people in your own hometown go through.
You're right. Like, relatability is the thing. I think a lot of people want to be radio stars. That's what I see these days. And for a long time, I've seen that. When that wasn't your end game, or that wasn't what you got into it for, and you're more interested in stories and other people, if you're an outward looker, I think that's where success comes from. I actually can't even listen to too much of me. I like to hear it being pushed out and shining a light on other situations. So I maybe that's part of the relatability. I don't know.
Well, this might be part of it. So what do you reckon you understand about Newcastle that, say, a new announcer comes to town, they're fresh to the market, things they might not know? What do you understand about Newy that newbies might not?
I think having Newy in your DNA, you know the struggles of the city, you know where we've come from. You could come here tomorrow and go, gee, it's all about renewables, but you might not know that the city and the town and the people and generations thereof were built on the back of coal. So there has to be a respect. And I think when you've lived and grown up and breathed the air, you understand people better than a newbie. That's common sense. And I don't think you can buy that. That's a lived experience. You can learn about it if you want to try hard. But I think us that have been here a long time, and I think that's the same for any heritage show. That's the term, you know that. But any show that's been around a while in its place, they do. You can't help but live and breathe people's worries, people's joys, people's humour. It's just part of you and them.
I love your humility, but if someone was to say, what's the secret of your radio success, could you define it?
No, I couldn't define it. I think there's a few things that I have thought about, and being able to evolve, and that's not just, with technology and all the rest of it. Just evolve your thinking, always be curious. And even that's a family motto that I taught my son. Just always be curious. The minute you lose your curiosity about life, about people, it's pretty sad. But it's also, I think, doesn't make for great radio if you're not curious. If it's who you are and that's where the story ends, then not very interesting. Not much fun.
I don't have the exact number. I'm almost afraid to ask, but I know it's 30-something years in market. What's your advice on longevity in radio?
Be authentic, always evolve, and kind of try and make the listener the star. And when Steve and I first got together, I remember them dragging us to Sydney to Triple M headquarters and sort of saying, what do you want the show to be? And I remember in the room, and there were quite a few in the room, those that aren't with us, but not that they're dead, it's just that they moved on. And I remember saying that. You've got to make the listener the star. That's really what I believe.
What do you still love about it today? What's your number one passion in radio? What do you love about the industry and the job?
I can hand on heart say, Liam, when the alarm goes off, I'm very excited to get up because it's going to be something brand new. It's going to be fresh. I'm not doing the same thing every day. And the people I work with, I adore. They are family. And it's just a great life. And I'm just so grateful.
I know Steve left for a couple of years and came back. Have you ever been tempted to leave Newcastle Radio for another market? Did markets come knocking? Were you ever tempted to leave?
Look, we same as Steve. We got offers. When I say we, David and I, for Adelaide, and I was offered a breakfast job in Sydney, believe it or not, years ago now. And no, the answer has always been no. I haven't really wanted to work anywhere else in Australia. I'm very, very happy here. I will see out my radio days here in my hometown, which is lovely.
So good. I saw an old photo of you, and I love this photo of you. It kicks around the internet, of a very young Tanya Wilks and a very young Maddie Johns from the mid-90s.
Oh, my God, yes.
You know the photo? Yes. It looks like you're at an OB somewhere. You're both so young.
Liam, I'm looking at that photo right now because it's here beside David's ashes, believe it or not. David made me keep his ashes. So I've got that photo of us there. So, yes, I know the photo. I love it. What
memories does that bring back? Because it's such a beautiful photo. You got headsets on. You're obviously talking to them. It might have even been the 97 grand final. I don't know, but it's just such a beautiful photo.
Yeah. Memories of that, those days when the nights were killing it, and Andrew and Maddie were not just fabulous players, but you could tell both of them were going to go on to a media career.
It's just so amazing that, you've both grown up together. As I said, the Mount Rushmore of Newcastle. What's been the best part of the journey? If you could pinpoint it, a memory, an event, something you'd say that was so good.
One of my standouts is when I came back, I was living in Dublin, and KO came a-knocking kind of thing, and I was pregnant. And I said, look, thank you, but I'm pregnant. Even though I'm going to move back to Australia to have the baby, I'm pregnant. And they were like, doesn't matter. We're fine. We can put a studio into the house. Wendy Harmer did it, and we've still got the equipment. I was like, really? Okay, well, why not then? So being able to be pregnant and have a baby and get a new job while you're, 3 months pregnant, that was pretty special, like in the early 2000s for that to happen. So I'm forever grateful that I was part of something that hadn't really, apart from Wendy Harmer, there was not too much of that going on in, like I say, the early 2000s.
That's trailblazer stuff. Don't you wish that you and Wendy are both so on the bottom of that OB kit and they passed it on to someone else and to see who had it over the years?
Yeah, true. Put your name here. Sign off.
It's like the travelling pants. It's been so good to talk to you. I just love your career. I love the fact that we can see so much of it on socials. Like if you're not following you or following Triple M Newcastle on socials, you just get to see an insight into just absolute authenticity and just realness coming out the speakers. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. And thank you, Tanya Wilks, for joining us on the Quarter Hour podcast.
Thank you, Liam.